Okay, thanks, Miranda, for coming in. I'm sure you don't remember, but the last time we talked was probably within 12 hours of you hearing from the Cannes Film Festival that your first film had just won an award. You had come to Seattle. It was the opening night feature, and there were a couple of us that got to talk to you before opening night, and then you were whisked away, so most of the press didn't get a chance to talk to you.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm trying to make up for that now.
Well,
Yeah.
that's good. I was wondering if you could, let's just start off, talk about what that experience was like for you, to suddenly, be heralded for your first film at the Cannes Film Festival. What was it like, and how did it change at all your perception of yourself as a filmmaker?
Oh, wow. This is like therapy here for
Oh,
me.
great. Well, we got lots of time.
Yeah,
so
we're getting good.
relax.
Well, it was. I think in some ways, it's the sort of thing you understand better in retrospect. I mean, at the time, it was so exciting and unbelievable, but I didn't really. It's not like I knew about the camera door for years and was like, maybe one day I'll win that,
Yeah.
Although now I know about it forever.
Uh-huh.
And you can only get it once. So I think it got sort of like, it dawned on me slowly, and then it kind of became something that I had to overcome, right? I mean, you have to ultimately stop winning the prize for your first movie and move
Yeah.
on and earn it all over again,
Yeah. So, in effect, I mean, are you saying it maybe became a burden, like the expectations?
No, I mean,
No?
I think no more than the burden of each thing, receding into the past. Letting go of anything is kind of hard for me, but
Yeah.
but yeah, I did get a little bit more self-conscious, just aware, like, oh, other people are thinking of me as like a professional in this realm. And I think to some degree that's never very helpful for the real creative part of it, when you're sitting alone and you really have to divorce yourself from any external, expectations. And so that was a little bit of a process that I'm now kind of happy to know about. Like, as I'm doing all this press, I'm like, and then you will have to stop doing this and move on at a certain point. Yeah.
Now, does it come with a little statue? Do you have it on your mantle or something?
I put all the everything that movie garnered in a storage box and put it in the back of my closet, and I keep out one award that my friend made for me. It was a trophy, a complicated trophy that says award for extra good movie. And I let that one be kind of the placeholder, and because it comes from my friend, it's a little easier to like feel the love. Yeah.
Good. Okay, so now we can talk about your new movie. It's called The Future, and would it be fair to say it's like a midlife crisis movie for 30-somethings? How would you characterize it?
Well, it definitely is a personal movie, and I made it, I was 30, in my mid-30s. But I think it's also about mortality and time and sort of one's relationship with their inner self, and those things are not age specific.
Right.
So, those things are very universal. It's also about a cat.
Yeah, we'll get to the cat.
But that said, it has been really satisfying to see all the 35-year-old-ish women coming up to me and kind of giving me a look like, like you made a movie for us. And really for us, not just like trying to get us to come, by
Right,
selling it that way, but actually, from the inside. And that, I mean, it's nice that the audience seems to be wider than just that one demographic, but that's the one closest to my heart. That means so much to me.
And just because it's just literally come out in this last 10 days, have you seen Bridesmaids? Do you have any interest in Bridesmaids? And
I saw it with two other women. We laughed our heads off. I really liked it. Yeah. And I was really, I mean, it did feel sort of momentous, like somewhat like I was somewhat political. Like I was like, wow, it's Thursday night. This theater is packed. It's playing every single hour. Like I'm glad. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of room out there for a lot of different kinds of women-driven movies, but I'll take it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. So one of the great things I'm this is mildly personal just because the movie deals with so many personal issues. I thought the business about age was hysterical when you talk about how 35 is so close. Do you want to go through the scenario?
Yeah, there's a point where me and the character playing Hamish Linklater, who plays my boyfriend Jason, it's dawning on us that I say like we'll be 40 in 5 years, and he says and 40 is almost 50, and then after that the rest is just loose change. And I'm like, loose what? And he's like, like not enough to get what you really want.
Yeah.
Which isn't, I should say for the record and for all my friends, including my husband, who are older than 35, like, that's the speaking from the middle of sort of a panic state, know, and of course not the truth, but somehow true.
But the brilliance about that whole setup is that 35-year-olds can convince themselves that it's their life is over. They're so far projecting ahead. They said, well, it's too late for us, I think it's one of the lines that you have. Are you conscious as you grow older of your age? Are you becoming more conscious of it because time is short, or do you become less conscious of it because you're living? I don't know.
Yeah, no, it definitely hit somewhere in there. I think in your 20s, it's sort of amazing. I mean, you just actually think you're going to probably do everything, like probably I will go to every country, because why not? Like,
can there be?
And then you, in your 30s, like, I think for me, it just occurred to me like, oh, right. Totally finite, like actually like as finite as this day is, this life is. And some of that had to do with also, meeting someone who once you say like, I want to spend the rest of my life with this person, you begin thinking about the rest of your life. You picture yourself as that old man and women. And it's, it's not only upsetting, there's some real depth there, but I think the movie gets more in funny ways and in sad ways into like the sort of not being able to deal with it side of it.
One of the, I don't know if it's a metaphor for the movie or something, but you start off early on. In fact, the very first scene, your boyfriend in the movie stops time. And and at the time, it's very funny. It's just kind of like this joke.
Yeah.
It has some real serious consequences. I mean, it's a serious dramatic moment when he stops time again.
Right.
Is there an impulse in you that you feel like you need to stop time? Do you think that's a human impulse, that stopping time to prevent bad things from happening?
Right. I mean, I should say also, first of all, I am just interested in time, and I could have like geeked out way more here on. I could have just made a whole movie about like time and time travel, and But I was really happy to realize like this is coming from an emotional place that I know. I mean, I've been broken up with, and like the moment where it's actually happening and the words are coming, and you're like your ears are turning hot and cold, and it's just like the air is changing, and you do feel like if I could just stop, like if you don't say it, then maybe this won't happen. And so being able to do that in this like really real way in the movie was so satisfying. And then kind of get into the quagmire of what that means, sort of, okay, if time has stopped for him, but it's continuing for her. I mean,
It just reminded me of, Ken Burns, when he did his Civil War documentary, he talked about the moment when they were all editing the assassination of Kennedy, and they all Lincoln, they all sort of held their breath because they realized, oh my God, right now, by not pursuing it, Lincoln is still alive, and it's like it's that kind of you can't stop the march of time, but it's just those temporary imaginative moments. And that's sort of what it reminded me of.
Yeah.
That it's like, it's just something inevitable is happening and it's not going to be good.
Right.
You want to freeze that moment.
And film does you kind of have the illusion you've already invested so much in creating this world that you could do it.
Anyway, the movie, obviously, what I liked about the movie was that it comes off as so kind of light and quirky and kind of, like fresh, like a breath of fresh air. These guys get 30 days to kind of do everything. It's as if they're living their life as if their life was going to end in 30 days. Because they sort of see that as we have this freedom to do that. And then what happens within it ends up being very kind of profound in a light and airy kind of way. So you keep the tone, but you end up having a very substantial movie at the end. But one of the most distinctive things about this movie, and I told you we'd eventually get to the cat, is this cat. And so can you talk about, and I assume that's your voice.
It is.
Like your voice.
Yeah.
So you do this little squeaky cat's voice, and how would you describe the cat's role? Is he somehow, I'll let you.
Right. I mean, even from the start, I had this idea of this cat that would be narrating his own sad story, but that would kind of be inherently funny because cats don't talk. And and it took a long time to figure out like what their relationship was with the cat. But ultimately I began to realize like, this is the soul of the movie. Like this is as sort of unbelievable as it might be, ultimately this cat carries sort of a lot of emotional weight, and in a way maybe can, because he's been created by like our collective belief in him. Like we sort of, as the audience made the decision to believe that this is, I mean, you only ever see his front paws, so the audience is doing a lot of work to make it into a cat, which seems important to me. And in a way you have these other characters who are kind of shifty, like your feeling about them may change a lot, but I feel like the cat is sort of the rudder in a way, like the emotional rudder.
And clearly there's this reference to its wild nature, and I assume that connects to the characters themselves. That the characters, there's some like alliance between the cat and the relationship, right?
Yeah, I mean, I thought a lot about. I mean, here I have this woman who strays, and that I play, and this stray cat who was wild and very much wants to be domesticated.
Yes.
And I think in the case of like a person, me, a woman, a newly married woman, you kind of wonder, like, can I believe in this, that I can have this love, that I'm not just gonna like have some untamable part of myself, not just as far as like having an affair, but even being able to accept the idea that you could be loved, and that this sort of the fiction in a way that you have to cleave to have a lasting relationship. And so that threat, that kind of fear, she's walking that line the whole time, or walks right over it. And then the cat is sort of another version of like wildness, from the other side.
And how did you decide on the voice? Is that your classic cat voice when you want to do cats? I mean,
right.
It's kind of, it's screechy and personal and kind of I don't know what the word, so it's like begging for attention. It's like needy and screechy.
Oh dear, this isn't sounding good.
I mean, but the thing, I think it's a very winning, and I'm just wondering, do you do voices? Do you do different voices? If it was a dog, do you have a dog voice?
My dog voice, which I will do right now. No.
I mean, your background is like is
it is,
art,
yeah.
So.
And I think in a way, because of that, because I am used to playing a lot of characters, I was like, whoa, well, I can't, this is a real movie. I can't also play the cat, because that would make it like weird performance art,
Yeah.
And so I, up until almost the very end, I was still bringing in people to read, an old woman, a young boy, professional animal voice people for cartoons, and really, some great people. but I think by the end I realized I had worked, I had worked with these monologues for so long that I was beyond controlling. I mean, I was that cat and I was very hard to replace. And ultimately I was the boss too. So I worked hard on the voice, so that you wouldn't constantly think like, but wait, is this Sophie?
Yeah, that's excellent. I've got lots of things I want to ask you about. One of the things, just given the world we live in, again, your characters, I think it's your character who suggested it. You decide to live without the internet. Do you think that would the world be a better place if we all shut off the internet for 30 days? Do you think that is a kind of, I remember when Susan Sontag was in town before, obviously before she died, she talked about she took a year off from reading because she had spent her entire life reading. She just needed to kind of clear her brain. How do you see the internet? Because it does play, I don't know if it's a crucial role, but it does play a role for you. You were doing your dances and all of this on the internet. What's your take on does Miranda July have a particular take
on the internet? Well, I mean, I use it a lot. I can't, I'm not a Luddite. It's like integral to my work. But it does sort of blow my mind that this thing was invented in my adult lifetime that I never would have conceived of as a child, that is now going to be how I spend a whole lot of the rest of my life. And I kind of like, it's a hard thing for me to just totally accept. Like, I will always be tied to this thing. And when I come in the door from being outside, I will go to that. And when I wake up in the morning, I will open it just, so I think I wanted to have it in there, have this couple online a lot, just to make it real. Yeah. And then for anything to happen, they have to turn it off, I mean, which is true in life too. I mean, ultimately you do have to step away to actually have the things that are supposed to happen to a person in life.
I think that your very opening scene is just classic, because you see that everywhere too. And it is so, 15 years ago, you could imagine you have a couple very comfortable on the couch, sitting on the couch together, facing each other, and yet they both have their computers up, and they can't be bothered to get up and get somebody a glass of water and all that. They are. I mean, even in the most relaxed. We used to think of reading the New York Times, on a Sunday morning. Instead, the umbilical cord to your computer is impossible to deny. I think that was just a really nicely set up touch. I wanted to ask you about, again, the movie is full of great kind of insightful one-liners, kind of things that don't necessarily have to reverberate with the whole themes of the movies, but also just seem very kind of like they just seem right. And one of them is when you are looking, I think you're looking in a mirror and you say, I wish I was one notch prettier. Can you talk about that and people's own sense of self-image and what your sense of self-image can and cannot do for you?
Right. Yeah, that line. Yeah, she says, my character says, I wish I was just one notch prettier. I'm right on the edge, where it's up to each person to decide for themselves. I have to make my case with each new person, which, I mean, that's kind of how I feel, sort of like, there's some people who, no, just everyone agrees they're beautiful, like they don't have to negotiate that each time. But I think there is something about putting yourself in your movie. Like, I think part of me almost just wanted to speak to like what that isn't for me. It's not that I just think like I'm just so fantastic looking. Let's just look at me as much as possible. Like it's totally uncomfortable. It's like a sort of hair raising. I mean, you must have like listening to your own voice. I mean, there's something satisfying about it, but it's also really upsetting in a way, especially, and especially, if you've never been sold on the idea that, I remember my mom saying like, you're just the right amount of prettiness. You're pretty enough so that the people who love you will think you're pretty, but it won't be like a big problem in your life, like that you have to prove yourself that you're smart, because you're so pretty. And I was like, it's sort of not exactly what you want to hear when you're.
Thanks, Mom.
I get what she means now.
Yeah.
And she's sort of saying something she was probably just thinking, like, this seems good for a girl, like. But I was like, okay, so. I guess, yeah.
I want you to know that this was funny. Yesterday when I was, we had our little joint interview with your husband, Mike Mills, who's here with another film, Beginners, which happens to have a talking dog. I just realized you have a talking cat and a
I
talking
know.
dog in your rival movies. And Ewan McGregor. And when he was singing your praises, you know, I mean,
Oh.
just going on and on, I said, but don't you wish she was one notch prettier? You
Ah.
should have seen the reaction. Ewan looked at me askance and then says, oh, it's a line from the movie. He says, that's good. I was going to knock that guy's block off, you know, for going after Miranda. So Ewan McGregor has already come to your defense.
Wow. He's such a gentleman. Yeah. I can
he,
so
though?
picture that, though. That would really.
Well, we got it up on our website if you want to see that moment. It really was funny.
Wow.
I liked it. And he then made some crack because I was talking to him about did he have other roles that he would like to play, or there, you know, directors and, you know, and then Mike said, well, why would you need any other directors? And then I said, well, I suppose there is Miranda July. And she says, yeah, well, I begged her to be in the first movie and she didn't allow it. So
I know, he won't let that go. I know. You said that to me yesterday.
Is that right?
He did. I mean, you know, obviously he has no shortage of options.
Yeah.
It just we were making these movies back to back. So, and I was a little behind Mike. So Ewan heard about, like, I was trying to cast this part, and I think he was like, well, I'll play it. Like,
really?
He was like, it'll be great. We'll be like a family. And he was, you know, having such a great time on Mike's movie.
Yeah.
And I don't, yeah, that, you know, I that would have been wonderful in a way, but very confusing for me and Mike, I think.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, if you got him, especially if you guys are, you know, friends, personal friends, I mean, he would his presence would help send you know, your movies into a different, you know, stratosphere.
Right.
I think in terms of recognition, but at the same time, I don't know if that might interfere with the kind of the vibe you have going with your films,
Right.
which seems so. They're very distinct. I mean, you've only made 2 movies, and I'm not familiar with your performance art work, but it's already in 2 films. You already there's a certain kind of Miranda July vibe that I'm getting competely, and I don't know if you would throw that asunder.
I mean, I'm sure he would do a great job, but it is true. You know, I had sort of thought with this movie, like, okay, I can cast big stars now. You know, maybe it wasn't appropriate for the first movie, but I could see that. But in the end, I don't know if I'm just controlling or what. You know, the people that I wanted just happened, you know, to be great actors who were, you know, more obscure than Ewan McGregor. So I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that. It's so, you know, it's just one movie at a time. Yeah.
And again, being a woman and directing yourself and setting up a sex scene. Again,
Right.
uncomfortable. I thought I couldn't have imagined it before I saw it. I thought, this seems perfect for a Miranda July movie. I don't know why. Did you struggle with that? How did you decide to end up doing it the way you did it?
Well, I was excited to do it. I was like, wow, this is sort of an amazing thing to get to write here. And I felt good about it. And then I remember actually a friend reading it, and he said, you know what? This is a really rare thing. Like, I don't know if this has ever happened, that a woman writes and then gets to direct herself in like, he's like, maybe just go a little further. Like, I know you have more there, because it was pretty short. Like, and I was like, wow. Like, I did need a little permission, you know, because it's scary. And then, and that was one of the funner parts, actually. I think everyone on the set was so nice to me that day. You know, they were just like, poor woman, she has to do this. That I was just kind of basking in that. Yeah. I was like, this is great. And it's actually pretty easy to rub against this chair, you know, as far as things go that I have to do. Yeah.
That's great. So I'm interested in, have you, you know, Alyssa here was telling me that, I mean, she loves your writing. So you actually write
fiction,
done performance art. You're now at movies. Are you like or do you consider yourself like sort of a multi, you know, faceted artist, or are you kind of like leaving those things behind and moving on? Are movies sort of taking over your life, so to speak, at least for the foreseeable future?
Right. No, after the first movie, I really knew that it was important to like finish my book of short stories and get that published and do another performance, which this movie actually evolved out of. And I did made some sculptures, and I desperately wanted to make the space bigger because I was like, oh shit, now I'm just a filmmaker because this movie is so much more known than all the other things I do.
Yeah.
So I that was a real conscious decision because it felt, true to me. And now I just finished a book that comes out later this year, and that's a nonfiction book, and now I'm working on a novel. So.
So you're keeping all your options.
Yeah, I can't promise that the next movie will come any sooner. But this one, it seemed really quick to me, given everything. Yeah.
I know, it's funny because I was like, wow, that was a lot longer ago than I remember.
Right.
It's taken a few years.
Yeah.
And then finally, I asked Mike a bit about this yesterday. What's it like being married to another filmmaker? Is it a natural rivalry or attention? And I'll tell you what he said first, which he said, look, we met at Sundance in competition. So that's sort of like part of our, the DNA of our relationship. It sort of comes out of the fact that we are, and he said, in good spirits, but it's like, that there is that kind of, we're both doing the same thing. And it's interesting because a lot of couples, they share interests, but they don't do the same thing.
Right.
And so I'm just wondering if that's a concern of yours, maybe you can look down on him as just a filmmaker and you have
right.
this breadth of
no, but he does a lot of other things too.
That right?
Yeah,
Okay.
That's in fact what sort of attracted to me initially. I was like, here's a guy just like me, just sort of narcissistically, I guess. I was like,
more me.
Yeah, more me. But it's intense. I think we both must have wanted to live in a kind of like hothouse or something because it is really like, just when I'm like winding down for the day, I look over at him and he's having a good idea and I can tell the way he's writing in his notebook. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not having a good idea right now. Maybe that good idea is going to be like the best idea ever,
And
then and then I have to be like, whoa, okay, calm down. Like, this is just, it really doesn't matter. And it sort of forces you to deal with all your demons, because you have all that anyways, about everyone else in the world and what they're doing. And you kind of just have to get sort of like Buddhist about it and like really deal with it and kind of let go, or else your great love is going to suffer, so.
Well, your film is called The Future. Your future looks bright from the outside. How does it look from the inside?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm so glad to be at this point. Yeah, it's up and down with making a movie, and this is the part you fantasize about. Yeah. Literally standing here in front of the mic with someone interested, and
Well, it can't be that rare given the interesting, aspects of your art. I think that's fantastic. Listen, I know I'm supposed to let you go here by now. Anything I didn't ask you, or anything you'd like to say about the movie that you think we hadn't covered or should have covered, or?
Well, no, you were very thorough. But there is I just launched the website for the movie this weekend. Excellent. And it's thefuture.com. The just one future was already taken. And there's a kind of interesting thing on there whereby you can sign up to get advice about your future on a bi-weekly basis that I will be giving to you.
From you?
From me.
Oh my God.
As if I didn't have enough to do.
No, that's perfect. Well, and that sounds like that comes from your whole performance artist background.
Yeah, and it's writing. It's fun. It's fun to write them. Yeah, it's kind of gotten addictive.
Well, once it gets on our website, we'll have to make sure we get our own personal, message from Miranda July. It's been great seeing you. I'm really glad. I loved your movie. I think it's fun to know that you're still. I was wondering if you had stayed with it or not. I think it's great. I'm going to have to check out. Alyssa's been recommending your writing. I'm going to have to check out your writing as well.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it. And